Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Fringe North podcast. My name is Caitlin Townsend. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm the project coordinator for this year's festival. And I have with me here today Amy and Kenny. Amy and Kenny, would you like to take a moment to just introduce yourselves and share a little bit about your festival submission piece? So we'll start with introductions. Amy, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. My name is Amy Blackmore. Some of you on the Fringe circuit know me as the executive and artistic director of the Montreal Fringe Festival. But in this case, I'm the director and co-adapter for the piece that Kenny submitted, Malunderstood.
And I am Kenny Streule. So I'm the creator, adapter, and performer in Malunderstood, a virtual performance experience. I also work alongside with Amy Blackmore as the artistic producer of the Montreal Fringe Festival. So it's very natural that her and I work together on my first solo show together. And we're really excited to be a part of Fringe North. It's really cool.
Yeah, we're very thankful to have you as part of our festival this year, and we're looking forward to it. So how did this particular project come to be? And Kenny, you had shared that it's your first one. So how did that come about, and what made you take the leap into the other side of Fringe of actually performing?
Yeah, totally. This piece started when I was in the Young Creative Unit with Playwrights Workshop Montreal. And I was asked to write a piece about something. And I really wanted to write a piece about the three languages I had to learn when I was a child. So I learned English, French, and Swiss German. And as I was writing it, this character sort of came out, and my dramaturge, Jesse Stong, was like, focus on that character. So then I continued writing the show around this character who turned out to be my grandmother. And in the show, we call her Beaver, which you'll all learn about her. And then when the first draft was done, before I should say that, Amy gave me the challenge to finish the script for the summer after our festival. So as soon as that first draft was done, I went right over to Amy's and I said, we've got a script, let's start working on it and make it a solo show. So we did that. That was in 2019. We adapted it, made it into a solo show. It was ready for February 2020. We had a 2-week sold out run at Mainline Theater, which is, my favorite venue in the city. I'm not biased. It's just my favorite city and my favorite venue in the city. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. So it was a kind of there goes our live performance. Sort of, we were thinking like, where can we tour it? What can we do? What's the next steps? We were so excited about it. And then the pandemic hit, so we kind of slowed down. But then the Canada Council came out with this special COVID-19 grant for digital originals. We applied. They thankfully gave us the opportunity to do a virtual performance of it. And that's how the Malunderstood, a virtual performance experience, was created. And now
I'd love to add to that, because I think that part of the truth that we just heard Kenny share is that he responds to a challenge very well and enjoys responding to them. And I remember when the pandemic hit in Montreal, we were locked down pretty quickly, March 14th onwards. And Kenny actually asked me if he could go back to the farm where he grew up and live with his family throughout the pandemic. And I said, of course, work from home. And the interesting thing is that through our conversations, we realized that he was actually getting to live with and connect with his subject material, which he hadn't done since, I don't know, when did you live with them last?
Oh my God, I moved out when I was 17. So, it had been a while since I've gone back. So about at least 10 years I've gone back and lived there.
It ended up being a little bit of a gift to the project. And we're really thankful that the CCA decided to support us in moving forward with it.
That's really awesome to hear. And Amy, from your end of things, is this sort of your first project directing, or how long have you been directing?
I've been directing for many years now, but it's definitely the first time in a while that I've gone back into digital content, into film. And it's been quite the interesting experience, with shows stopping. It's kind of afforded me a little more time to explore and to create and have fun. So I think with Kenny, especially, we're a natural fit to work together. So it's just been a really nice return.
That's awesome to hear. And for like this, because this project was kind of like created and started prior to the pandemic and then had to shift, I'm wondering how that process felt for each of you as you sort of approached it in a new light to make it digital, and how that went.
Yeah, I mean, it was for me, reliving the stories I wrote back at home was quite an experience. Like the fact that, like, in the show I talk about this L-shaped table, which in Swiss German is called the Inkbunk. And I'm sitting at this table that I grew up at was something else, you know, and I'm talking from the table, and I talk about how my grandmother lived in the basement. So we filmed in her basement where she lived, and the people I was on set with were like, they smelt it. And in the show, I talk about how I hated that smell. It was such a not a good smell, and it was awful. And then when I had people working on the set with me, they were like, no, this reminds me of my grandparents, and it's really a good memory. But the longer they stayed, they realized how the smell was kind of not so great. But for me, it actually became really like a going back journey. Like it really, for me, it really got emotional kind of at sometimes, because I was like, oh, I remember as a kid I used to play there, and there's different scenes where I'm sitting on toys, and like I used to play on those toys, you know. So it's like it's quite yeah. It was a going back in time kind of thing for me. It was really emotional.
And I think that, you know, from my point of view, something really interesting that happened is that I ended up directing a piece without being on site when the shooting took place. So I had planned to go to London, Ontario, which funnily enough is where I am right now, to visit family for a month. So we planned the whole thing around my absence, and also just for safety reasons. You know, the less people on site, the better. So Kenny and our incredible videographer, Sean Kobe, worked together on site to get all the footage based on notes and the script notes that I was supplying them with. And the other cool thing that happened too is that we realized that, you know, the 45-minute show wasn't going to work as a 45-minute digital piece. And we thought, what is essential to the story here? Let's get rid of, I don't want to call it fluff, because I really believe in the staged version, but, you know, how do we get down to the essence here of what's really important to convey a message, and what do we really want that message to be? I think that's certainly part of the questions that we asked ourselves in the process.
That's really interesting that it was kind of like this condensed version, because then it kind of opens the door for when things open up and people can come to theaters again, that you're providing something new, and it's not like they're seeing the same product but on stage. Like it's its own thing, which I think is really unique, and that's really cool. In terms of, as you faced that and trying to decide what that was going to look like and what gets taken out. I know, like, as a writer myself, when I write, it's like it's really hard to let go of certain things. So what was that like for you, Kenny, in particular, especially this being so tied to sort of your past and like having the heart of you in it so much? How was that process of deciding what stayed and what didn't get to stay?
I am fortunate to work with such a talented group of people for this show. Even though it's a solo show, like the work that happens backstage is really something I appreciate, to be honest with you. And I do attach myself to certain stories, but I do take people's feedback very serious on the team. So, you know, when we were laying it out and we're looking at every scene, like Amy and I had many conversations, like, okay, how do we adapt this to the virtual world? How do we turn this into an experience? You know, like with a live solo show, and the way I think my storytelling works is that I like to say a lot of words and say a lot of details and color my things. But what's fascinating with this experience is that you're on the farm, you're in the playground, you know, so you don't need me to describe what's happening around me. So, you know, like cutting down the script was something, and I realize a lot of writers are always like, oh, but it's my baby and I wouldn't want to destroy it, and I don't want to, but for me it's like, you know, there's an expression that it takes a village to teach a child. Sorry, mes expressions en français des fois ils sont pas très bonnes, but it takes a village to raise a child. Is that it?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, there we go. That one. It takes, and I think that comes back to that analogy where people say like, oh, it's my baby, it's my script. no, it does take a village. It takes a community. It takes people to actually say this story is not that great. This part won't work in the experience, you know. And I think, you know, yeah, I have some favorite parts that are in the live show, but then I have new favorite parts that are part of the experience. And I think that's what made me get excited about it. But the essence is still there. You know, we allowed my puppets to come into the show, which is wasn't live and is in person. So the live, I must say the same word, the in-person and the experience. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's really important to keep the heart of teams together, and like it being about like that team element and that co-creation process. And I'm curious, Amy, on your end of things, directing and not being present, and like I'm imagining you would have to really rely on that team and that team dynamic to know that your notes are going to be taken seriously even when you're not present in that. So how did that, I guess, how did the heart of the team come together, and how did you work together from a distance like that?
Yeah, I think trust is key, and you know, true collaboration, like the true real, like in the most real way. You know, if you're going to really collaborate, you have to really trust. And so there was a lot of that going on, and there was a lot of freedom offered as well. It's like, you know what, try this. If it doesn't work, try that. What's plan F and G and whatever, you know? I think a lot of that did take place. But again, you know, because we've worked together from the get-go on this project over many years, I think that trust was already established, and I think it was easy for Kenny to know on site the direction that it was going to take. I also provided a lot of materials to watch, like inspired by this. Check out this YouTube video. You know, the more information, the better. So definitely creation from all sides.
Yeah, and if I can just add, like Amy throwing in like videos and stuff like that, like you'll see the scene in the car. That's all Amy, who saw a video and said, let's recreate that, but with the character of Beaver, my grandmother, and it worked so perfectly. When we did the scene and it was put together, I was like, I thought I would have come up with something like that, but that's all Amy. I give that all to Amy because that was really her crazy idea, and it was really great. It was such a good collaboration, and you know, and Amy was always a phone call away, even though she was in another province. It was like whenever like we needed help, it was just a quick phone call, and there she was.
Well, conveniently, I was in the country too, and you know, you were in the country where you were shooting, and because I was in the country, I was walking around like taking pictures of trees and filming scenes from the car and texting them. I mean,
yeah,
it was pretty fun.
That's awesome. So on that note, with like being in the country and like the influence that has as you're trying to create this digital project, I'm wondering, like, when it was a digital format versus in stage, where did you draw inspiration from that might be unique to the stage versus unique to the digital version of it?
You know, we looked at the digital version and we said to ourselves, what will make people want to watch this, right? Because like YouTube and Facebook, it's all quick videos, right? So we had to condense a lot of stories to make them, like, I'm gonna use the word snappy, or the young people will say TikTok, which like, so we really got inspired by like creating like a scene that had like a lot of pages and turning it really into a condensed telling of the story, more imagery. And I think that's what really created its uniqueness with it all. And I think because the solo show, it's me on stage, so we don't have access to a huge set. But now I had actually access to the actual farm. So I'm sitting in a tractor for one of the scenes. I'm standing beside cows, you know, and like one of the scenes I was filming on a slide, and my actual grandmother was watching it in back of the camera, was watching me through the scene, which was very intimidating, but it was also such a really cool experience. And I think that's something that you can only experience once you do an experience like that at home.
That's awesome. Amy, do you have anything to add on that point, or?
No, I think Kenny really summarized it well. Yeah, no, I love it.
Awesome. So I'm curious about what each of you are hoping to that festival goers take away from this experience, and what do you hope they gain from attending this show?
That's a great question, and it makes me think of someone who saw the show, the experience this person's from Australia, and he saw this in the winter. He got the video and he watched it, and he said to me, it made me want to call my own grandmother. And I think that's something that like this show is really important to me. My grandmother is a very big part of my life. Thanks to those 2 months I got to go at home, I had a lot of laughs with her, and I still I went down for my birthday for my 2-week vacation, and it was lovely to see her. I just in the last 2 weeks I just came back to work and I saw her for those 2 weeks, and it was such a joy. We had so much fun, and I hope that this show allows you to realize the importance of the relationship with the people who raised you, you know, and like and what those people mean to you, and also just a good laugh. Like have a good laugh on our behalf. Like it's a fun show, and I hope Fringe North folks are ready to see it.
Yes. Totally, yeah. I think it's definitely work that we can all relate to. So I hope folks enjoy.
That's great. And if you were to choose like a favorite element for yourselves in this piece, what would you say it is and why?
Puppets, because.
Yeah, I have to say that the puppets is a good one. I gotta say, I think for me it was filming the car scene. The car scene is one of my favorite ones. It's a lot of fun. It's very jumpy, and it's like my style of comedy. So I had good fun with that one. Yeah,
that's awesome. And my next question, I'm just curious in terms of viewers at home and folks that are interested in attending this, because it has that different language dynamic with a couple different languages being in there. What can they expect from that, and how did you utilize that throughout the experience?
Certainly. If you haven't noticed, I have an accent when I talk. If you haven't, great. I appreciate you not noticing, but many people notice the accent I have. Pour moi, je suis très bilingue puis même trilingue. J'aime ça changer de langue comme je fais présentement dans la conversation. Puis je trouve que la beauté du Québec et la beauté du Canada, c'est qu'on a la possibilité d'avoir toutes ces langues-là. Puis quand j'ai pensé à mon premier spectacle, c'était vraiment d'intégrer ça à l'intérieur de ce spectacle-là. Puis comprendre une langue à travers une autre, je veux dire, c'est beau de mélanger ça. Puis je trouve que dans l'expérience qu'on a faite, c'est vraiment présent. Qu'est-ce que tu penses de ça, Amy?
I was just going to say, you know, I think that language is so connected to our identity, and how we see ourselves. And certainly as, you know, Kenny and I are both language minority artists within Quebec, you know, primarily Anglophones who happen to be bilingual or trilingual. And, you know, language means a lot to us. And I think it was really important, you know, as Kenny mentioned while he was writing, but also, you know, myself as someone who encouraged him along the way to embrace it, and also realize that, like, you know, I mean, there's language that's used in the script that isn't, how shall we say, like perfect grammar, because that's just not how we speak, you know. And I work with Kenny often at Mainline and the Fringe, and we'll be in the office and we're talking both languages and we just jump back and forth, and you know, it's a bit of a mishmash. I will say that I think that in the future it would be really nice to be able to have a version that has full French subtitles, or at least create a version that's French. It's definitely something we've talked about, but it's really nice, you know, to see it as is. I have to share actually a funny story with you briefly, if that's okay. But when we did when we did the live version of the show at Mainline, there was a reviewer that came, who appreciated the show but maybe didn't appreciate everything about it. And in the review they wrote, English is clearly not his first language, in referring to Kenny, which was a bit of an odd comment to state. And and also horribly inaccurate. But hilarious all the same. And the truth is, we've been actually using that line ever since to promote the show because it is true. Kenny is malunderstood. It's kind of the beauty about it all.
Yeah, I'm curious too, because I am someone who speaks a couple different languages as well. I don't speak French, unfortunately, but I lived in Europe for a bit, and one thing I noticed when I was in like the German community there, you can express things differently in different languages, and sometimes like a sentence that you want to say, like if you're trying to get a point across, I'm wondering if you used it at all to kind of select certain languages for certain lines to create a certain effect, if you know what I mean by that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the character of Beaver, she speaks Swiss German. And I mean, I think her frustration sometimes would come out in Swiss German, but I think sometimes her frustration would just be a look. She would just, that's something that my grandmother would do all the time with me, would just give me a look and I'd be like, oh no, I'm in trouble now. But yeah, no, I mean that it was interesting because I think even during the writing process, Amy, I remember once pointed out a line and said, we need like a good like expression here in Swiss German. It feels like the right moment to take out an expression about time, and then I did a bit of research. I called my mom and we discussed it and we found the right thing. We put it right there, So and I think it's I know for myself because I grew up. I was born English. I had to go to French school and I learned Swiss German. Sometimes when I have to think of something serious and I need to like focus on myself, I jump to French right away. But then other times I'll just divert myself to English. And, when I'm frustrated, I might just say a Swiss German curse word because, that's the thing that's the top tip of my tongue. And it's just there, So I think, yeah, I think that's the beauty of languages. We can just jump to another one,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm just noticing the time. Do either of you have any final thoughts of things that you would want our viewers to know about in regards to the submission or your journey within the artistic space as well?
I'd like to share that, we're just, again, so thankful to be a part of this festival. Congrats on making it happen. I think that for us, to have an opportunity to share, this is the first time we're truly sharing it outside of Quebec. So we're really thrilled to do that. And we'd love to hear from you after you watch our piece. We'd love to get your feedback.
That's awesome. Any final thoughts on your end, Kenny?
No. Amy has absorbed my excitement and shared exactly how I feel about being a part of this festival. And please come get Malunderstood with us.
So for those watching, the festival is running from August 19th to 22nd with a sneak preview on the 18th. So come out, support Amy and Kenny by attending the show and purchase tickets. Thank you for your time today to both you, Amy and Kenny. Merci, miigwech, and gracias for your time. And thank you to our viewers as well for watching and for tuning in. And we'll see you all again next time. Bye. Thank you for watching our podcast. Merci, miigwech, gracias. If you like what we're doing, you can support Fringe North and the artists involved in this year's festival financially so that we can continue this work. Visit www.fringenorth.ca to find out more.